Brought up something that made me think of a little story, which is so the scene with Mary has a funny backstory. When I read it, and I don't know, some of you maybe have heard this or we've talked about it, but when I read it, I was like, there it is. Meaning, at the end of last season, when Amara looked at Dean and said, "I'm going to give you what you need the most," I would have thought it would have been his father. But Jeffrey Dean Morgan's not available. Because he's awesome and he works constantly. So I was like, oh my God, they're going to try to get Jeff back. And then they're like, no, we're going to bring Mom back. And I was like, interesting choice. Okay. And for the entire season, Jensen, had a hard time processing that for Dean. And I think it kind of read that Dean was almost he was unsure about the relationship with Mom, and he didn't know why, and I didn't know why, and it was kind of weird. And I love Samantha to death. I think she is one of the sweetest people on the planet. But as far as from a character standpoint, like there was kind of a friction, or not even a friction. It wasn't cohesive, and for me, that troubled me because I like to find that connection with another character, and I think that's one of the things that drives the show the way it does is the relationships between the brothers, the relationship between Dean and Cass, the relationships between Crowley, even like all of those relationships have a place, and they have some sort of a cohesiveness. And I struggled to find that with Mary, and it bothered me, and I couldn't understand. I was like, why am I having such a difficult time like finding that gel, finding that pocket with my mom, and making sense of what the darkness had said at the end of last season. And when I got the script for 22 and I read that scene, I was like, there it is. That's what Dean needed the most, was to forgive his mother. And so Robert Behrens, who wrote that script, was on set that day, because a lot of times at the end of the season, the writers of the scripts will come up and visit the set to watch their episodes get filmed. And it's at the end of the season because they don't have any other scripts to write. Because in the beginning of the season, they're already working on their next script, and they got to write it, and they got work to do. So Bob Behrens came up, and he was sitting behind the monitors, and I remember walking up to him, and I was like, hey man, I got to thank you for literally clearing up the entire season for me with in respect to the Dean and Mary relationship. And he's like, how do you mean? I was like, well, where I say that, I forgive you. I hate you, but I love you, and I forgive you. And he was like, what? I was like, what? Don't mess with me. That's tied into the last season. He's like, uh-huh. So I don't know if he was messing with me, but if that was a mistake, that was the happiest accident that I've ever experienced. Because for me, that's what I played. When I had that scene with Samantha, I was playing that. I was playing that this is why you came back. this is why God and the darkness gave you back to me for this catharsis, this cathartic moment. And I don't know, I was very, very happy with that turn in the script, and it was heavy. It was very heavy, and I remember I wasn't going to cry. I literally remember that I was like, all right, don't do tears, because that's obvious. Like, that's, and the script called for it. The script was like, and Dean with tears running down his face. And I was like, don't tell me to cry. I hate that. I told Bob that. I told Barons that. I was like, hey, listen, don't put that in there. If it happens, it happens. But don't make me feel bad if it doesn't happen and you wrote it in there. So I remember reading it and I'd be like, nope, that ain't gonna happen. Screw you. And then when we started working and I was sort of doing the scene, and the emotion kind of started flooding me, and then it was real. That was a real moment. And like, I felt for Dean, because I knew what that meant for him. And so to be able to emote emotions of a character that you care so deeply about, that's pretty special. I'm a lucky guy to be able to do that for 12 years. So thanks.